everybody, Crafting Journey here, that journey chick on Instagram. I am on the road on the way to the retreat. As we speak, I'm on the road. Right now, I'm in the hotel. I brought Richard. Look, Richard's with me. Everybody gets to meet Richard. So, lots to cover in Crafting and Crime Daily today. Oh my word. But first, it's National Make Somebody Smile Day. Oh look, lots of sun. Natural light today. How do I look in natural light? Yeah, anyway. Hair went up. I was going to braid it, but my hair is so full of curls that it's hard to braid. Anyway, so National Make Somebody Smile Day. So when you make someone smile, you make them feel good. You lower their stress level. When same thing when someone smiles at you, you're like, oh, somebody loves me. So smile at somebody today. Don't be a grumpy Gus. So here, I'm gonna make you guys smile. I have a few dad jokes I thought I would tell you. The first one is, how do you teach a child about taxes? You eat 38% of their ice cream. Now, come on, I thought that was very funny. Okay, I have some more. I wish my gray hair had started in Las Vegas, because what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Now, that's a good one. Okay, so why did the football player go to the bank? I ruined that joke. Why did the football coach go to the bank? To get his quarterback. Okay, one more. Let me find a good one. I'm thinking I should do lunges, but that's a very big step forward. Okay, if I have not made you smile, then I'm very sorry. But hit the like button today. He's going to make me smile all day long. That's his job. So make sure you hit the like button. And if you're enjoying the content of the channel, please share it with someone. There's down below, there's this little thing that goes like this little arrow. Just go click and share it with one of your friends. Tell them, hey, Crafting Journey, Crafting and Crime Daily. She covers live trials. Yeah, trying to grow the channel. I know it's completely selfish of me to spend this couple of minutes telling you about this, but yeah, Crafting and Crime Daily. Try to get people on board, give them something to listen to while they craft. Think of it as a whip and chat about crime, and of course, blogging my daily life. And of course, if you're enjoying the content, subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell, because you never know when I'm going to upload the Crafting and Crime Daily. And right now I'm doing a retreat blog, a crafting retreat blog. They're all numbered. They are shorts. If you haven't watched a YouTube short, check them out. They're just little 1-minute tidbits of my travel here and there. So let's talk about the trial. Okay. Oh, whoa. I'm getting a suntan here. I gotta sit. There we go. Because I don't have like any crafting to do. Oh my God, last night I was like, what do I do? So I kitted up. I was going to kit it up at the retreat. So I kitted up my diamond painting last night. I wanted to start it so bad. It's called Waiting for the Master. It's a diamond art club. It's this cabin. It's at night. There's a moon. There's a dock where these dogs are waiting for their master to come home. And I thought, no, because it's a very large painting. I didn't want to get that out. But I got it all kitted up, except I'm short. One container. One Harbor Freight container. Or two. I probably need two. Then I discovered, I'm working as well. So I figured out I only have 48% battery life left on my work computer. It won't connect to the hotel because it's not a secure Wi-Fi. So automatically I don't know. It would connect yesterday while I was in a restaurant. So today for breakfast, I'm going to go connect it, and but I discovered I didn't bring the cord for it. I brought both, because I have two HP computers, and then and my work computer is a Dell. I didn't bring the Dell cord. I brought two HP cords, no Dell cords, power cords. So I'm gonna stop at Walmart. They have like a imitation one for $20, and yeah, I'm gonna plug that in, and because I gotta keep it powered up. Anyhow, all right, back to the trial. So yesterday, I'm listening to this thing all the way to here. Stopped in Oak Grove, Missouri, but Danielle Redlick took the stand in her own defense. So prosecution rested their case. And I'm going to admit, I didn't listen to the rest of the prosecution case because I get it. They got she told many different stories about what occurred. And prior to hearing her testimony, I'm very guilty of this. I kind of made up my mind that I just didn't, she had told so many different stories about why it happened. I thought, this woman's guilty. Plus did I miss the medical examiner? Was there a medical examiner? I didn't know how many times he'd been stabbed. So come to find out, he'd only been stabbed once. It was underneath wasn't in the shoulder. She thought it was in the shoulder, but it actually went into the armpit. I suspect it hit artery. But anyway, here's what happened, according to her words. And she paints this picture. She's on the stand from before lunch until the end of the day, with the breaks and stuff. But the attorney walks her through, how is it that you married your stepdad? He had been dating her mother for a year or two. They went to Vegas, got married. Right after that, found out she had stage 4 breast cancer. She passed away a few months after that, about 6 months after they got married. He had a house with the mom, and he said, I don't want to uproot your sister. At this time, she was an adult. She said she was like 25, 22, 20. She was in her 20s, young 20s. She was not living at home, but her younger sister was. She was the oldest of 5 or 6 kids. So her youngest sister was still living at home, and the dad didn't want to change her school district, by moving or uprooting her. And so he asked if Danielle would come over and help out, if she would move in and help out with the sister. And she did. She helped out with the domestic chores and everything. So she and Michael became friends. No, she said it wasn't until a few years into the friendship that it actually turned romantic, where he started courting her, so to speak. They go out on dates, and so eventually they fell in love. He gets a job in Memphis. At the time, they were living in Cleveland. I want to say Cleveland. He traveled around a lot because he was an executive. He was a lawyer, but he was an executive with several different sports teams, and he just kept changing sports teams. So one time he was with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and he went to the Browns. It didn't matter which sport. So he got a job in Memphis with some basketball team. He moves down there, but then he buys her a plane ticket every week to go down there and visit him. So after about a year, she comes down one weekend, and he says, I've got a surprise for you. So he takes her, and they park in front of this house. It's a beautiful house, beautiful piece of property. And he says, I bought this for us. And she's like, oh, okay. So she moves down there, and I never got a good sense of what she does for a living. She is a professional. I don't know if she's a writer. At one time she worked for a newspaper, but anyway, so she moves down to Memphis with him. They don't get married right away. She gets pregnant, and I think it's after that, with their first child, that they get married. Jaden is their first child. Now, Jaden is the one that testified, but we don't know what she testified to. I've heard that she testified that her father was the aggressor, and that there was a lot of strife, relationship strife. So So then she talks about the marriage itself and how there were several, even before they got married, there were incidents in the marriage where he would get angry. He would start drinking. He would get angry, and apparently an angry drunk. And then he would manhandle her, and by that she meant, shoving and pushing and grabbing her by the arm, and then at another, she also described that he had erectile dysfunction. This is not for kids, guys. Erectile dysfunction. So, they weren't having relations, so he goes and they go together and they get a treatment plan that includes injections, testosterone injections. And after these testosterone injections, things get a little better, although not his temper. I guess things in the bedroom must have got better, but the temper went along with it. So she also describes that at one point she starts drinking as well. And then they both decide that they're going to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I guess they went to different meetings. He meets a woman there whom apparently he has an extramarital affair with. So she's describing several different incidents where he's becoming progressively more violent with her when he gets angry, throwing her up against the wall, choking her. That was his go-to to kind of like choke her. He was 6'2", I think, and she's not. Meanwhile, she didn't leave him because she said, I still loved him. There was still a lot of good in this marriage, but they kept moving around because he would change jobs. Eventually, they ended up in Winter Park, Florida. Yay, Florida, where everything happens. So they end up in Florida, and again, he's becoming progressively more violent. This is where they're starting to go to Alcoholics Anonymous, and he's having this affair. She finds out about it. She actually finds out about it because she goes to a meeting and the woman approaches her and starts talking to her. We don't know what was said because it's hearsay and we're not allowed to know what it was said. But after that is when, if you'll recall earlier in the testimony I read to you, and this crazy email that Danielle wrote to her husband. Well, this is what prompted this crazy email after this woman approaches her at an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. So it's at this point that she says, you need to leave. You need to get out of this house. And plus, she keeps describing these incidents of violence where he's just really, really angry. She described that I'm fast forwarding through a lot of it. But I really got the sense after the detail that I heard that that he was violent with her a lot, and that she would have to back out of the situation either if she couldn't de-escalate it, she would just leave until he calmed down. So if you fast forward to, at one point she asks him to leave. He leaves. She says he always found someplace to go. But the problem is, she wasn't paying any of the bills. She had a credit card. He paid all the bills. They had housekeepers, dog grooming, the whole 9 yards. But he paid for everything. She had no control over the bills. So she comes home one day and he's sitting there. Obviously he had keys to the house because of the kids. He's sitting there and he says, I love my wife. Well, she got all gushy over it, and they decide they're going to have sex, and in the middle of the sex, or maybe shortly thereafter, they're in bed. There's a knock on the door, and it's the process server with the divorce papers that she had instituted. So she goes to the door, tells the process server, yeah, never mind, we've changed our mind. So weird. So he moves back into the house, but then things really, really get bad. He starts drinking, smoking a lot. There's a lot of trouble he's having at work. She's just saying, you need to, let's just stay together for the kids through Christmas. Let's make this a really good Christmas for the kids. But, then we'll decide where the relationship's going to go after that. So, on January, now he's killed on the 11th, I think. On January 10th, she's in the shower. And when she comes out of the shower, he's sitting on the bed. Now, he had taken the day off. They were going to go run errands together. So she had already dropped the kids off. The kids had already gone to school. So she takes a shower. I think he took the kids to school. So she gets in the shower. She's getting ready to go, run errands for the day. She comes out of the shower. He's sitting on the bed, and he's visibly angry. He had looked at her phone and found out that she had joined this dating site and that she was texting a guy named Caesar. And he's really angry, very, very angry. I mean, and this anger just didn't calm down. They get into an argument. He wants to know, are you fucking her? And she says, no, I'm not. Or him, Caesar. And they actually made her say that in court, which is why I'm saying it on the show. It's a direct quote. I don't talk that way. I don't say those curse words unless it's a Sunday and it's live and I'm pissed off at my boss. But, so if your kids heard this, I'm sorry. I'll put a warning at the beginning. Anyway, so she leaves the situation. This is one of those where she's, he's just seriously pissed off. She leaves to go run her errands. She wanted to do some Christmas returns. He follows her out of the house, gets in his car, and follows her. She goes to DSW, which, by the way, is the best store ever. It's a shoe store. Oh my God. Everything from sneakers to hooker heels at this store is a warehouse. So she goes to DSW. She comes out of DSW. There he is in the parking lot. So she gets in her car. She heads over to the Gap. She gets out of her car, goes into the Gap. He follows her into the Gap and starts arguing with her. She says, I was totally embarrassed, so I didn't even complete my transaction. I just left. I get in my car. He gets in his car, and they just sit there in the parking lot. So she calls him, and she's like, listen, this has got to stop, and he's just going on and on about this guy that she, are you going to see him? Are you going to have lunch together? Like, he just cannot leave this alone. So she hangs up, and she gets another phone call and from her doctor's office. So meanwhile he keeps calling her and she's not taking the calls. But he leaves 2 messages. So we actually do get to hear 2 phone messages from her where you hear he's very angry about this Caesar guy and talking to her about it. And he's telling her, you don't even come home, just go to a hotel. So she texts him, I'm coming home. And you can tell from the phone calls he's pretty angry. So she texts him, I'm going home. So she goes home. By then her son is home, but the whole day, he's just furious. They have a confrontation, another argument where he gets violent. She leaves. Meanwhile, her daughter, Jaden, comes home, and now her daughter is arguing with her dad, and her son is texting. So she gets in her car, and she's just sitting on a side street in her car, texting her kids. And her son is saying, listen, Jaden and dad are really arguing, and it's getting loud, and she says, text me when it's safe to come home, because she said he was very, very drunk. Apparently, when she had first come home, he had pulled a bottle of vodka out of the freezer, took some huge gulps of the vodka, then pours a glass of vodka for her, shoves it at her, it falls off the counter and glass breaks everywhere. So she cleans up all the glass, which apparently her son later steps in and cuts his foot because she didn't get it all cleaned up. So she's sitting on this side street, and her son finally texts her about 9:30. They're going back and forth. She's texting her daughter, "Are you okay?" "Yes, I'm okay." Finally, Dad passes out. Her son says the coast is clear. She's like, "Open the garage door so I can come in, and he won't notice my car." And apparently, he heard the garage door open, and he woke up, and so she had to wait till he went back to sleep. So she eventually comes home, and they have a loft bedroom. So she goes up to the loft bedroom and sleeps for the night instead of going to the master bedroom. So she gets up the next morning. He's still angry. He had to go to work early that day. So when she gets up, he's already dressed and ready to go to work. Still very, very angry. And he looks at her, and he's ready to leave. And he says, "I'm not done with you." And she didn't know what that meant. "I'm not done with you." So he leaves. She runs errands for the day, and she comes home and, well, she runs errands because the housekeepers are there cleaning the house. So she comes home later on. The housekeepers are still there. He's there because he got off early. Well, he went to work early, so he got off early. So he's there, and he starts arguing with her again. And she's like, "Listen, we're not going to do this in front of the housekeepers. We're not." So she leaves again to go pick up her dog from the dog groomers. But the dog wasn't ready, so she just sat there and waited until the dog was ready. Then there's a football game that night, and he's telling her, "Don't go to the football game. I better not see you there." And anyway, she goes, and he was coaching the game, and apparently they didn't have time for dinner. And so after they get back home, she's just like, "Listen, I'm going to go get us some dinner. Do you want something to eat?" He's like, "No, I don't want anything to eat." And so she goes to get McDonald's. And by the way, it was a quarter pounder, not a Big Mac. She went to get a quarter pounder with cheese. So she comes back home. She's starting to eat her sandwich, and he grabs it from her, takes a bite, spits it out at her, and now they're fighting. This fight ensues. Now, this is when he shoves her to the ground, then he pulls her up by her hair, shoves her face onto the stove, and he's covering her mouth. She said she was in fear for her life. She just said he had this look in his eye that was crazed, and she just didn't know if he was going to kill her. She just couldn't think of any other way to get out of this. She couldn't breathe, so she reaches in a drawer to grab a knife, at which point he kind of backs up a little. She takes the knife and she points it towards him, and stabs him, at which point he lets her go. Because, well, what happens is when she points the knife at him, he pushes her down on the countertop. So now she's laying flat on this countertop with the knife, and she just goes ahead and stabs him so she can get away. And then he backs away, and she runs up to the bathroom. Now, here's the thing about the door. Yes, the bathroom door had been damaged the day before because she had run. At one point during their argument, she had hidden the bathroom, and he had broke the door down. Well, within the bathroom, they have a closet and a closet door. So on this day, she runs into the closet and closes the closet door. When she comes later on, she stops hearing him. He followed her. She stops hearing anything, so she comes out. She walks down into the living room. She sees him there. She panics. She calls 911 twice. I don't think she says anything because she said, "I was in shock. She said, I didn't think that what I did to him would have killed him. So that's why I thought maybe he had had a heart attack." So she said she was just sitting there looking at him. And, and then she goes and she grabs some towels, and she's trying to soak up the blood. At one time she had pushed on the area, and a bunch of blood came out. And then she puts her mouth on his, tries to do CPR. She can see that no, it's not helping. So at one point she says, I was in shock. She says, "I just sat there staring at him. There's my husband, he's dead." And she falls asleep. Yeah, you heard me. She fell asleep. Fell asleep. Wakes up, 7 o'clock the next morning, finally calls 911. Says she honestly thought he had had a heart attack. She said they had just recently found out that he had heart issues. She honestly didn't think that she said the knife wasn't that big. I didn't think that would kill him. So she really thought maybe he had a heart attack. So she calls 911. She gives that explanation on 911 tape. And, we know the rest of the story. But, so, I mean, here's the thing. After hearing this, and if you get a chance, you can go back and listen to it. I think there's a lot of reasonable doubt as to whether she did this intentionally, that was premeditated or anything like that. I think this was clearly self-defense. I think it was self-defense. Now, I got the overall impression of her was she gave as good as she got. I don't think she was innocent in all this, by no means. I think she shoved back when they had fights. She admitted to verbal barbs that were pretty cutting, like the fact that he was Jewish and things like that. I think she gave as good as she got, but she found herself in this situation that she couldn't get out of. I mean, says there was no other way. She was not going to get away from this man without stabbing him. Now, I don't know what a jury's going to say. So this morning, will be her cross-examination. Yeah, they're going to cross-examine her today. I have to get my notes. Now, I've been promising you the end to the McStay murder, the McStay family murder trial. So I'm going to bring you up to date because it's been a few days since we talked about this. This is the McStay family that went missing, totally missing. And just nobody knew where they were. They were later on found in 2 shallow graves 100 miles from their home, buried in a desert. Dad with one of their sons, mom with the other son. Now, as you recall, the father, Joseph McStay, owned this business, Earth Inspired Products. Now, this was a business that he had a partner in. His partner, Charles Chase Merritt, was eventually arrested for this crime. Although we know that there were several theories of who could have done this murder, but my question always was, how could one person carry out murdering 4 people, 2 adults, 2 young children? So he goes to trial. If you want to hear about how this trial went, I'll put up in the eye some of the other coverage I did of this case. But closing arguments. So here we have all these witnesses have come on and they have testified. No, it's all circumstantial evidence. There's no direct evidence that this guy did it. And the biggest circumstantial evidence is that his DNA was found in there, a Isuzu Trooper. However, there was not any explanation for why the Isuzu Trooper was found on the Mexican border, why we see the family crossing the Mexican border. That maybe that wasn't the family, but I don't know. So how did this Isuzu Trooper get to the Mexican border? We don't know. There's no evidence about how it got there, why it got there, who put it there. They never tied that to him. That just really left an unanswered question. Now, the problem, another problem during the case was the prosecution showed a CNN interview that Charles Merritt did. And in this interview, it's so haunting, he says, and this is a quote, "I was most definitely the last person that he saw," talking about Joseph McStay. And I don't think he meant like the last person, but that's how it was taken. Yeah, of course he was the last person that saw you because you killed him. So then the question became, is he going to testify? Is Charles Merritt going to testify? And he really, really says I wanted to testify. I really wanted to testify. My attorneys talked me out of it. So he was very angry with his attorneys for talking him out of testifying. He says, I want to tell my side of the story, that, I didn't kill these people. He had a past. He had some burglaries in his past. He did have a criminal record. Of grand theft, petty theft, different things like that. But on the closing, his attorneys, and I don't know why this happened this way. Most of the time when you do an argument, it's just one lawyer. The judge will say, who's doing the closing? In this case, they both got to argue. Both of his attorneys, the lead attorney and the other attorney, got to stand up and make arguments. And they were arguing different theories of the case. They didn't talk to each other about who's going to argue what theory, and then they were both arguing two different theories of the case, which was, I'm sure, very confusing to the jury. Charles Merritt was like beside himself angry. So the jury deliberated. They deliberate all week long, 5-6 days. Day 6, which is a Friday, they come back with a verdict. And the other thing, this trial was so crazy. The jury says we can only deliberate for half a day every day. So like 3 hours a day. That's all they wanted to deliberate. So that's why it went for 6 days. So on day 6, they reach a verdict. The judge tells everybody, come back on Monday. We'll read the verdict on Monday. I've never heard of such a crazy thing. So they come back on Monday, and the jury finds him guilty of murdering this family. They recommend life in prison for the murder of Joe McStay and the death penalty for the murder of Summer, the wife, and the 2 children. Crazy. So, of course, Charles Merritt files a motion for a new trial. And interestingly enough, at the motion for the new trial, he was making arguments against the lead attorney. This lead attorney is the one that took this leave of absence in the middle of the trial because his mind went blank, and he really hated the way this guy tried the case. So he does a motion for a new trial. He was saying they failed to call witnesses. They had a cell phone expert that was ready to refute all of the cell phone testimony. I mean, one of the biggest damning things is that there was, his phone pings off a cell phone tower that literally looks right over the gravesite. Like, if you go to the gravesite and look up, there's the cell phone tower. However, the cell phone expert would have testified that cell phone tower, if you know anything about cell phone towers, they usually have different quadrants. Like, they're broken into 3 or 4 quadrants that it could be facing at any one time to get the most coverage. So apparently on this day, on the day of the murders, it was rotated in an entirely different direction. And the direction that it was rotated was his sister's house, which was that way. Also within the radius of that cell phone tower. It was not focused over the gravesite, but his attorney didn't call this cell phone expert. So the attorney has to recuse himself from this motion for a new trial. But then at the start of this motion, Charles tries to fire the other attorney. And the judge is like, well, no, I'm not going to let you fire your attorney. He denies the motion. He says, I find that there was no reasonable doubt of your guilt in this trial. I think your attorneys did the best that they could. So his motion for a new trial gets denied. He is sitting in jail. He says he's writing a book. Right now he's on death row, but in California, under the current governor, there's a moratorium on executions, so he will not be executed unless a new governor comes in and lifts the moratorium. But interestingly enough, after this, there was this one witness that could have. They kept saying, "Find this guy, because there was a third partner, the webmaster, to this business that Joseph McStay had, and this webmaster, nobody could find this guy. And then afterwards, the producer that does this documentary that I watched, he finds Dan Kavanaugh. So Dan Kavanaugh is interviewed, and Dan Kavanaugh says, I was told by the police detectives, just disappear. Prosecution detectives found me, they interviewed me, and they told me, disappear. We've got our guy, we don't think that you did this, just lay low. And that's what he did. He says, I changed, I called myself by different names, I lived in different locations, so I couldn't be found. But I was told to do that by the detectives. What? Oh my word. So what could have happened in this case if Charles Merritt didn't kill this family? And I don't believe that he did. I honestly don't believe that he did. What are some of the other theories? Well, the wife, Summer McStay, no one ever explored why she had changed, over her life, she had changed her name many times. She changed her last name, her first name. Like, nobody really knew what her real name was. And why was she doing that? There was no explanation for that. So that's one thing. The other thing is this Mexican drug cartel thing. There was a rumor that the Mexican drug cartel wanted Joseph McStay to put cocaine into his products before it's shipped, so that, basically hiding the drugs inside of his product before it would ship. And he was refusing to allow that to happen. And then there was a third theory that the wife was poisoning Joseph McStay. He had become very ill just prior to these murders, and without any rational explanation about why he was becoming increasingly ill. So, was the wife poisoning him? I mean, what was really going on with this McStay family? Nobody really knows. I'd be very interested to read Charles Merritt's book. Now, I thought when you're in prison, you don't earn any proceeds of any book that you write, but I could be wrong. In any case, he's appealing his conviction, and we will see what happens with that. So that is the show for today. Kind of a long one. I'm going to get on the road like this. I'm getting a suntan here. I'm going to take Richard, and we're going to go. So more tomorrow on Crafting and Crime Daily. I'm going to tell you all about the cross-examination of Danielle Redlick, and if the defense presents any witnesses. If not, we're going to be on verdict watch today, later on today. If we get a verdict, I'll go live with the verdict. So take care of you.